So, okay, I'm looking at what you sent me, and my first thought, first official painted portrait, I'm sorry, it's gonna be the only one.
There's no reason to pretend here.
Just official. Move on.
Especially if you're going homeopathic remedies for cancer.
Yeah, that does not help things.
I think he could have made a much bolder statement in having dignity in death.
Is that why he's doing it? Is that your thought?
I mean, for me, at that age, depending on the prognosis, there is a whole lot of dignity, I think, in figuring out and owning the way you're gonna go. I just wish he would have been more transparent about that as a public figure.
Yeah, but that sounds a bit like assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that wouldn't go over well.
I'm sure that wouldn't.
Interesting. I'd not thought about it that way. I just thought it was kooky.
I mean, he is kooky.
Speaking of kooky, we are here to talk about... what did you call it, Erika?
Oh, the sequel to Tampon Gate?
Yes. A bloody tampon. You're listening to the Pithy Chronicle. History with a bite. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erika. And we bring you history's dirtiest deeds, dripping with sarcasm.
Are you hungry yet? We are here to talk about King Charles III's first official portrait, which Erika has lovingly dubbed the Bloody Tampon. Take Two.
So, the reason I say Tampon Gate is obviously the color. And I feel like I want to approach my comments about this in two different ways. As someone who works in the art space and the museum space, but then also someone who's really just looking at this at face value. Which one do you want to hear first?
Face value. Let's give them what they want.
Okay, dude, face value, like, it really highlights who he is as a person, and not in a good way. He has always kind of been known in the media and his portrayals as this outsider. I'm so misunderstood.
Yeah, I'm so misunderstood.
He's an emo boy.
He is emo. That's perfect.
He is an emo boy. And this is what that painting is. Because it's clear that he wants to
He's
talk
so
about
trying to show off.
his intellectualism.
Show how enlightened he is. He is definitely trying to portray this side of him that he is, I think, probably most proud of.
Right.
This very intellectual and learned man, because he doesn't have a lot else going for him. So that's his thing, and he's trying to portray that. But it's an official portrait. It doesn't make sense.
No, see, I disagree. I think it makes perfect sense artistically and for who we know him as a person.
I didn't say artistically. I said as an official portrait.
Okay.
I'm with you completely on the artistically bit. I totally see this. I see it. But as an official portrait.
Oh, as an official portrait, this is not it.
One that's supposed to represent you.
It definitely does represent him. It's just not a good look.
Unless he really is most proud of that and he doesn't give a shit that the rest of us think he's an ass.
I mean, when you're dying and you're king.
And the butterfly's there to help you down the red brick road.
I think all of this is a nod to his environmentalism and his belief in climate change and how we manage that. And of course, they're running helo ops right now in the back, so sorry for that.
Cool.
I think this is definitely, too, a bit of a nod to his impending mortality, which I know is treasonous, but he's fading out. He's fading out.
He is fading out. I do love that interpretation. I think that's a great interpretation. But my question is, whose interpretation is it? The artist's or his? Because when you sit for a portrait, I mean, I'm sure he picked the artist, he knows the style, but did they just, he was like, I want to fade out? I feel like that's the artist putting that on him.
In this BBC article, Yao jokes, if this was seen as treasonous, I could literally pay for it with my head, which would be an appropriate way for a portrait painter to die, to have their head removed.
Not lose their head, but they could easily be banished. So in this article, they say that he feels it's treasonous, so you're taking that as it was discussed.
Well, I think everyone can kind of see that this could be interpreted as treasonous, speaking of the death of the king and things like that. But even Camilla looked at the painting and said, quote, yes, you've got him, unquote. So
it also talks about the fact that he saw it when it was around half done and that he was, quote, mildly surprised by the strong color, but was smiling approvingly. So maybe he just felt like he understood his persona through this. And
also maybe his struggle, because he is a little bit of a placeholder king because he is... I know.
Do you really think he sees himself that way? That would be a very dark view of life. I know that we all see him that way, but I don't think he can approach it that way.
I think, and this is going to be the most controversial statement I've ever said on the Pithy Chronicle.
No way.
Yeah. I think Charles is a better father and a better person than we give him credit for.
Oh, no, I actually do agree with that.
Oh, wow, see? Not controversial. I think he probably has a bit more self-awareness, too, than we give him credit for. And being a complicated emo boy, I think he probably does see himself as like, yes, I'm king, but I've come after this great monarch, the second Elizabethan age, and my reign is going to be short, and my son is taking over when he is relatively young.
Yeah.
I feel like you would have to really ignore it not to see that.
I mean, I'm thinking of Victoria's first daughter, Vicky, and she married for love, and she married Frederick III, who would become the German emperor, but only for like 90 days.
Yeah, it's very short.
It's very short. I can't remember exactly how long. But because of that, he did everything he could possibly do in that time period. He tried to cram as much in as possible. Mm-hmm. And I wonder that Charles isn't doing that, because it doesn't feel that way.
I mean, I think that he's finally taking a page out of his mom's playbook. Sometimes maintaining the status quo is the most important, but also look at the familial issues he's having to deal with in home with Harry and Meghan, with Andrew. He wanted this slimmed down monarchy, but now he and Kate are out of play right now, so how do you manage that? Who do you bring in? Do you put people back on the royal trust? Yeah.
That's a reasonable question. Although I will add that Frederick III was also dealing with his son, Wilhelm II, who went on to basically be the worst human being ever.
Yes.
And he was evil toward his parents as well. And so...
But he's also very young. Friedrich was very young. And I'm sorry, Prince Charles is pushing 80, man. He's tired.
That's true. I think artistically it is a beautiful interpretation. I think that were he a pop star or something, it would maybe work better, or like a rock and roll legend at the end of his life. Perfect.
I think that it just doesn't work as an official portrait. I think it works in every other way.
But the problem is this is an official portrait.
If this was for his personal collection or a second portrait or a final portrait.
Well, maybe they were planning on a first and only.
You know what I mean? But I see so much of his personality in this. You've got the red, which is so vibrant, but it's
muted though.
It's vibrant and it's big, but you're not really seeing the heart of him, right? You're only seeing his face.
The artist is quoted as saying, "My interest is really in figuring out who someone is and trying to get that on a canvas."
Yeah.
And correct, sir. I mean, like, I don't know him personally. We're all sad and shocked. Charles and I have not, had a tete-a-tete. But...
I'm shocked.
But I still feel like this is exactly who I thought he was.
Yes.
So I do see it.
The color composition is great. I actually like the butterfly. I'm gonna be wild and crazy.
It fits him.
Not only does it bring in a lot of his environmental interests, his gardening interests, it is kind of this symbol of the fragility of life. I really appreciate that. But on a funny note, I also really feel like Prince Charles would have a butterfly tramp stamp.
That would be amazing.
Do you not think in his younger days...
But it would say mommy.
No. It's the delicate butterfly.
No, you're right. It would say Camilla.
Like, he strikes me as someone who would have a butterfly tattoo on his wrist. We often see old man Charles and kind of forget that once upon a time, he was hot to trot.
And that, my friends, is that. Let us know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? It's fine either way. Art is subjective. And also, in this case, a bloody tampon.
Yeah. I'm Erika.
And I'm Caroline. And we are pithily yours.
This episode is brought to you by the Pithy Chronicle, LLC. The Pithy Chronicle is intended for education, entertainment, and non-commercial purposes. Any views or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. While we offer lots of sarcasm, this podcast does not offer any advice or services. Listening to this podcast may induce fits of laughter, unexpected distraction, or uncontrollable rage at the subjects, hopefully not at us. We hope you learned something today. If not, so sorry. Please be advised we are not experts in the following fields: medical, legal, financial, technological, thermonuclear engineering, submarine warfare, neuroscience, or cat husbandry. Thanks for listening to our little disclaimer. Just covering our history-loving asses. Bye!